Hey guys, today we are going to tell an incredible story that will challenge everything you think about life, death, and the true nature of God. This is the experience of Persephone Caldwell, a woman who, after going through a near-death experience, discovered a truth that religions never revealed. If you want to know what really happens on the other side and how it can change your life, stay with us until the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos like this. Let's discover this shocking revelation together. My name is Persephone Caldwell, and I was born and raised in New Orleans. I don't know if you know New Orleans, but it's a unique place, you know. It's as if the past and the present dance together in the streets and the buildings, even in the air we breathe. I grew up hearing stories of spirits, voodoo, and all sorts of mystical things. In my family, we always talked a lot about God, but it was a kind of scary God, you know? That guy who's always watching, ready to catch you if you do something wrong. I've always been a practical person, you know? I worked hard, took care of my own life, but deep down, I always felt like there was something more. Something I couldn't quite explain. And look, I never imagined that I would go through something that would completely change what I thought about God, about life, and even about death. It all started when my mother, Margot, became ill. It was one of those illnesses that never came back, you know, and taking care of her. Wow, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. When she was gone, I felt like the ground had disappeared from beneath my feet. I was exhausted, not just in body, but in soul. That's when it happened. 4 days after my mother's funeral, on a Friday afternoon, I lay down to rest a little. But I didn't wake up on Saturday, not even on Sunday. When I finally opened my eyes, it was already Monday morning. I had been completely blacked out for 3 nights and 2 days. But what happened during that time? Well, that's what I want to talk to you about. What I experienced in those days. Many people will call a miracle. Others will say it was a hallucination. But for me, it was a revelation. It was like a veil had been lifted from my eyes, you know? As if for the first time I could see things as they really are. I know it sounds crazy. Believe me, I doubted it myself at first. But what I experienced was so real, so profound, that it changed everything for me. And that's why I'm here, telling this story. Because I think it's important to share. Who knows? Maybe this might help someone to see things in a different way, just like it happened to me. So, if you can, open your mind. Try to imagine what I'm going to tell you, because what I experienced goes beyond what we usually think about life and death. It's a story about love, about connection, about what really matters when we look at the big scheme of things, and who knows, maybe you too will feel a little bit of that peace that I found on the other side. Look, I need to tell you how I got to this point. Because it wasn't out of nowhere that I fell into this deep sleep, you know? It was a process, and a very difficult process. Caring for my mother during her illness was... How can I explain? It was like trying to hold sand in your hands. The harder I tried, the more I felt like I was losing her. And it wasn't just her body that was going away, you know? It was as if her soul was also slowly withering away. My mother has always been a woman of faith. The kind of people who wake up early to pray, who have their Bibles all marked up and memorized. But seeing her wasting away like that, it shook her faith in a way I never imagined was possible. And to be honest, it messed with mine too. I caught myself several times looking up at the sky and thinking, what kind of God allows this? It was as if the whole idea of a loving and protective God that we hear about in church had shattered in front of me. And then when she finally left, guys, I don't know how to explain the emptiness that was left. It was as if someone had ripped a piece out of me. I felt hollow, you know? As if they had sucked all the life out of me along with her. In the days following the funeral, I tried to get back into a routine. I tried to work. I tried to do normal everyday things. But it was like I was moving in slow motion, you know? Everything seemed so meaningless, so empty. And the tiredness, my God, the tiredness. It wasn't just that tiredness of someone who didn't sleep well at night. It was a tiredness that came from deep down, that weighed on every bone in my body. I felt exhausted, just breathing. It was in this state that I arrived that Friday. I remember thinking, I just need to close my eyes for a little bit, just a moment of peace. I lay on my bed with my cats around me. They hadn't left my side since my mother left, as if they knew I needed them. And then, I just deleted it. It wasn't a normal sleep, you know. It was as if I had been swallowed by darkness. I had no dreams, I had nothing. Just darkness. Now, looking back, I realized that that moment was like a watershed moment. It was as if my body and mind had reached their breaking point and decided, that's enough, we need a break. And it was this break that opened the doors to the most incredible and transformative experience of my life. You know that feeling when you're sleeping and suddenly you realize you're dreaming? That's more or less how it started, only 1,000 times more intense. One moment I was in total darkness. The next I was looking at myself. Yes, you heard right. I was floating above my bed, looking down, and there I was, lying down, with my cats curled up next to me. It was the strangest thing I've ever felt. It was as if I had split into two, my body there still and, well, me. But I wasn't a body anymore, I was more like a consciousness, you know? The first thing that caught my attention was the calm. Guys, I was looking at my own inert body in bed, a scene that should be scary, right? But I wasn't afraid. None. It was a peace so deep, so complete, that it is difficult to even explain. All those heavy thoughts, all the worries that had been consuming me, simply disappeared, and the feeling of freedom. My God, what an incredible feeling. It was as if all the ties, all the weight I was carrying, had been cut at once. I could move just thinking, you know? I floated across the room, past the wall as if it didn't exist. I remember looking out the window and seeing the New Orleans night sky. The stars seemed so close, so bright. That's when I realized I was no longer tied to the physical world. It was as if I had freed myself from all the rules I had always thought governed existence. As I took it all in, I started to feel a kind of calling, you know? It wasn't a sound, it was more like a sensation, a gentle tug. Something was inviting me to go further, to explore more. And that's when things got really intense. Suddenly it wasn't my room around me anymore. It was the void, an immense space, dark, but not scary. It was as if I had been transported to another place, another plane of existence, I guess that's what I could call it. In this void, I felt small and immense at the same time. Small because, wow, it was too vast to comprehend. But immense because, for the first time, I felt like I was part of something much, much bigger than myself. It was at that moment that I understood. This was no ordinary dream. It wasn't a hallucination. It was real. More real than anything I had ever experienced. And something told me that what was coming would change everything I thought I knew about life, death, and everything in between. So, floating there in that immense void, I opened myself to the experience. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew I was ready to find out. As I floated in that void, something began to change. At first, they were just shadows, you know? Dark shapes that moved in the distance. But little by little, they became clearer, getting closer. Guys, let me try to explain what I saw. They were figures, but not in the way we normally think of human figures. They wore a kind of cloak, but it was as if the cloak was made from the surrounding darkness itself. You couldn't see faces or defined bodies. It was more like presence, you know? Now the crazy thing is that I should have been terrified, right? I mean, mysterious figures in an unknown dimension, it looks like something out of a horror movie. But it wasn't like that. When they approached, I felt welcome. Security. It was as if I had found old friends that I didn't know I had. These beings, because that's how I came to think of them, didn't talk, at least not the way we talk, but I could understand everything they wanted to tell me. It was as if their thoughts flowed directly into my mind, and each one of them, my God, the wisdom that emanated from them was something from another world. Literally. They started showing me things. At first, they were scenes from my own life. But it wasn't like watching a movie, you know? It was like reliving every moment. Only now I could see the connections, the hidden meanings behind each event. Things that seemed unimportant at the time suddenly gained a new meaning. I saw the moment I took care of my mother during her illness. At the time, I only felt pain and tiredness. But now, seeing through the eyes of these beings, I could feel the pure love that flowed between the two of us. I saw how those difficult moments had transformed me, made me stronger and more compassionate. They showed me moments from my childhood, decisions I made throughout my life, people who crossed my path. And in each scene, I could feel an invisible web connecting everything. It was as if every detail of my existence was part of a larger design, a design that I was only now beginning to glimpse. And you know what's most incredible? I could feel that these beings had immense affection for me. It wasn't human affection, it was something universal, as if they saw the divine potential in every being and were there to guide us, to help us understand our own path. As they showed me these things, I felt my consciousness expanding. It was as if each revelation opened a new door of understanding. I began to realize that life, my life, all lives, was much more complex and beautiful than I had ever imagined. It was then that I felt it. A different presence approaching. Something so vast, so absolute, that it made even those beings of light seem small in comparison. And I knew, deep in my soul, that I was about to meet something, or someone, that would change everything. What happened next? Guys, I don't even know if I have words to describe it, but I'm going to try, because it was the most incredible thing I've ever experienced in my life. Suddenly, that entire void was filled with light. But it wasn't a light that hurt the eyes, you know? It was a light that embraced. Imagine the most welcoming hug you've ever received, multiply it by 1,000, and maybe you'll come close to what I felt. And in the midst of that light, there was a presence. It wasn't a defined form, it was more like a consciousness. A consciousness so vast, so complete, that it made me feel both tiny and part of something immense. At that moment I knew. I knew it with every fiber of my being. That was God. Or what we call God. But it wasn't anything like the God I had imagined my whole life, you know? There was nothing judgmental there, no condemnation, none of that severe figure I grew up imagining, always ready to point out my mistakes. It was pure love. A love so intense, so unconditional, that it hurt. And while I was there, bathed in this light, one of the beings that had guided me there approached. He didn't speak, but I understood what he wanted to tell me. He explained to me that over time, we humans had distorted the true nature of God, that we had created religions and rules that often served more to separate us than to bring us closer to this divine force. It was as if a veil had been removed from my eyes. Suddenly, I could see with a clarity I had never had before. All those ideas of sin, of divine punishment, of a vengeful God, all of these were human creations. The truth was much simpler and at the same time, much deeper. What I felt there was pure love. A love that accepted everything, that understood everything. There was no trial, there was no condemnation. There was just acceptance, an acceptance so complete that it made me feel completely at peace with myself for the first time in my life. And you know what's most incredible? I could feel that this love was not just for me. It was for everyone, for every living being, for every particle in the universe. Everything was connected in this web of divine love. In that moment, all the worries I had carried through life, the fear of death, the guilt over things I had done or failed to do, the feeling of not being good enough, all of it just dissolved. It was like I could see life from a much bigger perspective, where all these things that seemed so important before became small in comparison to this universal love. And that's when I understood. I understood that the purpose of life is not to follow a set of rigid rules or try to please a distant and judgmental God. The purpose is to experience, learn, grow. It is discovering this divine connection that exists within each of us. I found myself crying, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of gratitude. It was as if all the weight I had carried through life had been lifted from my shoulders at once. And in that moment, bathed in this divine light, I felt complete. I felt at home. And I knew that, no matter what happened from then on, this experience had changed something fundamental within me. I would never be the same again. While I was still immersed in this light, this divine presence, I began to receive, I don't know what to call it, insights perhaps. It was as if the universe itself was telling me its secrets. The first thing I understood was about death. Guys, death is not the end. No way. It's more like a transition. Do you know when you move from one room to another in your house? It's more or less like this. We are just moving from one state of existence to another. And what about life? Life is a school. But not a boring school with tests and grades. It is a school of experiences. Every challenge, every pain, every moment of joy. These are all lessons. Lessons that we choose to learn to evolve as souls. I saw that all those things we value so much, money, status, power, are so temporary, so small in the grand scheme of things. What really matters are the connections we make, the love we share, the times we choose to be kind even when it's difficult. And the suffering? That was quite a revelation. Suffering is not a punishment. It is not God punishing us for something. It's an opportunity for growth. It's as if each difficulty was an exercise for our soul, you know? A chance to develop more compassion, more understanding. I also understood that we are never truly alone. Even in the darkest moments, there is always a connection with this divine source. We just forget sometimes. You get so caught up in everyday worries that you lose sight of this greater truth. And you know what's craziest? I saw that we choose. Before we are born, we choose the lessons we want to learn, the challenges we want to face. It's not that someone up there is deciding our destiny. It is ourselves, on a deeper level, planning our journey. Another thing that became clear to me is that there is no such thing as sin the way we think. There are choices and consequences of those choices, but there is no one up there pointing the finger and saying that we are bad or good. It's all part of the learning process. And the time? My God, time is such a strong illusion for us, right? But there, in that state, I could see that past, present, and future all exist at the same time. It's as if life were a big book, and we could see all the pages at once, instead of reading them one by one. All of this came to me in waves. Each revelation brought a feeling of, so it's like this. It was as if the pieces of a giant puzzle were finally falling into place. And in the midst of it all, I felt immense gratitude. Gratitude for being alive, for having the chance to experience all of this. Even the difficult parts, even the pain, everything suddenly made sense as part of this incredible journey that is living. As I absorbed all these revelations, something began to become very clear to me. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. But it's not just that romantic love that we see in movies, you know? It's something much bigger, much deeper. The beings of light and this divine presence showed me that love is what connects everything. It's like it's the glue that holds the universe together. And we, as human beings, have the incredible ability to be a channel of this love. I started to see all of my relationships in a whole new way. Every person that came into my life, family, friends, even those people who hurt me, they all played an important role. They were all teachers one way or another. And you know that connection I felt with my mother? That time I woke up in the middle of the night feeling like something was wrong and found out she was in church praying for me. Now I understood. This kind of connection, this love that transcends the physical, is our true nature. We just forget sometimes. The beings of light showed me that every act of kindness, no matter how small, has a huge impact. It's like throwing a pebble into a lake. The waves spread far beyond what we can see. A smile to a stranger, a kind word to someone who is going through a difficult time. These things seem small, but they can change the course of a life. And forgiveness? Wow, that was quite a lesson. I saw that holding a grudge, being stuck in old hurts, is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to get sick. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about releasing ourselves. It's about understanding that we are all on this journey together. We are all learning. We all make mistakes. Another thing that became clear to me is that we need to learn to love ourselves. Not in a selfish way, but in a compassionate way. Because the more we accept ourselves, the easier it becomes to accept others. And the more love we have for ourselves, the more love we have to share with the world. And you know what's amazing? I understood that this love, this connection, is not something we need to look for abroad. It's always within us. We just need to remove the layers of fear, doubt, and judgment that we accumulate throughout our lives, and let this love flow naturally. The beings of light showed me that every interaction we have is an opportunity to practice this universal love. Every look, every touch, every word, everything can be an expression of that divine love that connects all things. And most importantly, this love has no conditions. It doesn't depend on what the person did or didn't do. It doesn't depend on whether we agree with it or not. It is a love that accepts everything, that understands everything, a love that sees the divinity in every being, no matter how hidden it may be. As I took it all in, I felt like my heart was expanding. It was almost like pain, but a good pain, As if my chest wasn't big enough to contain all this love I was feeling. And I knew, at that moment, that my mission, the mission of all of us, is to bring a little bit of this unconditional love into our daily lives, to be a reminder, to those around us, of this divine connection we all share. As I continued on this incredible journey, a question began to form in my mind. A question that I think everyone has asked themselves at some point. What is the purpose of life? And guys, the answer I received was so simple and at the same time so profound that it almost left me breathless. The purpose of life is to live. It's experimenting. It's growing up. It seems too simple, right? But let me explain better. The beings of light showed me that we are not here to achieve some specific objective or to fulfill a list of tasks. We are here to experience all the nuances of what it means to be human. Every experience, the good and the bad, is a learning opportunity. It's as if life were a big playground for our soul. We come here to feel, to discover, to evolve. And you know what's most incredible? There is no right way to live. Each path is unique. Each journey is valuable. That pressure we feel to be successful, to reach certain milestones in life, these are all human constructs. From the soul's point of view, what matters is the richness of experiences. I saw that every challenge we face is like an exercise for our soul. Difficulties are not punishments. They are opportunities for growth. It's as if life is always asking us, how will you deal with this? What will you learn here? What about spiritual evolution? This is an ongoing process. There's no endpoint, It's not like one day we get there and say, that's it, I've evolved, it's over. It's a never-ending journey of discovery and growth. Another thing that became clear to me is that we are not here just to evolve individually. We are here to evolve collectively. Every act of kindness, every moment of understanding, every time we choose love over fear, all of this contributes to the evolution of all humanity. And you know what's craziest? I understood that on a deeper level we choose to come here. We choose the lessons we want to learn, the challenges we want to face. It's not that someone up there is deciding our destiny. We are ourselves in a state of expanded consciousness, planning our journey. The beings of light showed me that every person we meet, every situation we experience, has a purpose. Sometimes this purpose is obvious. Sometimes it takes years for us to understand, but nothing is by chance. And death? Death is just a transition. It's like the break between classes, you know? We return to this state of expanded consciousness, reflect on what we learned, and eventually choose to return for more experiences. All of this made me realize how precious every moment is. Every interaction, every emotion, every choice, it's all part of this incredible journey of self-discovery and growth. And you know what's more beautiful? We don't need to wait until we die to understand all this. We can bring this awareness to our daily lives. You can live each moment with more presence, with more gratitude, knowing that everything, even the difficult parts, has a greater purpose. As I took it all in, I felt an immense peace enveloping me. It was as if all the fears, all the anxieties about the future, just melted away. Because deep down, no matter what happens, everything is part of this incredible journey that is living. After all these incredible revelations, I started to feel, I don't know how to explain it, a kind of calling. It was like something was pulling me back. The beings of light approached me once again. They didn't speak, but I could feel what they wanted to tell me. My journey here was not over. I still had a lot to learn, a lot to experience in the physical world. At first, I confess that I felt a pang of reluctance, you know? There, in that state of pure consciousness, everything seemed so clear, so perfect. The idea of returning to the world with all its complications, its pain, was a little scary. But then, the beings of light showed me something incredible. They made me see that my return was not just for me. It was an opportunity to share a little of this light, this love that I had experienced, with the people around me. They explained to me that each person who goes through an experience like this comes back with a unique mission. Mine was to share this new understanding of universal love, to help people see beyond appearances and connect with this divine energy that is in all of us. And you know what's most incredible? They showed me that I would not be alone on this mission, that there would be guides both here and there helping me along the way, that I could always connect with this source of love and wisdom, even though I was back in the physical world. As I understood all of this, I began to feel an excitement building inside me. It was like I was about to start a new adventure, only now with a much deeper understanding of what really matters. The beings of light gave me some final guidance. They reminded me that, back in the physical world, it would be easy to forget all this, that everyday worries, fears, doubts, all of this could try to make me forget this greater truth that I had experienced. But they assured me that, deep down in my being, I would always remember that this experience had changed something fundamental in me, something that no external circumstances could erase. And then gently, they began to guide me back. It was like I was floating, gently descending back into my body. The intense light faded, and I began to feel heaviness, the weight of my physical body. As I walked back, I could feel every part of my body waking up. It was a strange sensation, as if I were wearing tight clothing after a long time of free floating. And then, in the blink of an eye, I was back. I opened my eyes, and there I was, in my room, in my bed. My cats were still there, sleeping peacefully, as if nothing had happened. For a moment I was confused. Had it all been a dream? But no, the feeling was too strong, too real to be just a dream. Every detail of what I had experienced was vivid in my mind. I looked at the clock and got scared. 3 days had passed. 3 whole days that seemed to me, I can't even say. Time had no meaning in that experience. Slowly I sat down on the bed. My body was stiff as if it hadn't moved for a long time, but at the same time I felt light, as if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. And then, the tears came. They were not tears of sadness, nor of joy. It was as if my body was processing everything that had happened, releasing all the emotions at once. As I cried, I could feel that unconditional love I had experienced. It was there, inside me. And I knew with a certainty I had never felt before that my life would never be the same. There, sitting on my bed with the morning sun streaming through the window, I made a promise to myself. I promised I wouldn't forget what I had learned, that I would do my best to live this new truth, to be a channel of this universal love in my daily life. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and eyes still teary, I got up, ready to begin my new journey, a journey of rediscovery, of love, of connection, a journey back home, to my true self. In the days following my awakening, as I came to call it, it was as if I was seeing the world with new eyes. Every color seemed more vivid, every sound clearer. It was as if I had spent my whole life seeing everything through a fogged glass and suddenly someone had cleaned that glass. At first, I confess it was a little overwhelming. Everything felt so intense. I would find myself crying out of nowhere, not out of sadness, but out of pure emotion. Seeing a sunset, hearing a child's laughter, even watching an ant carrying a leaf. Everything touched me deeply. And the people? Wow, seeing people was a completely new experience. It was like I could see beyond appearances, you know? I would look into the eyes of a stranger on the street, and I could feel their story, their struggles, their dreams. That connection I had felt on the other side was still there, pulsing through every interaction. Of course, not everything was rosy. Returning to the daily routine was challenging, to say the least. The worries that once seemed so important, bills to pay, deadlines at work, small disagreements, now seemed so trivial. I had to force myself to focus on these mundane things, and I wanted to share my experience. At first, I was so excited I wanted to tell everyone, but I soon realized that not everyone was ready or open to listen. Some people thought I was crazy, others were scared. I learned that I needed to be selective, sharing only with those who were really open to listening. But do you know what was most difficult? Maintain this expanded awareness in everyday life. It was easy to connect with that universal love when I was meditating, or in nature. But in traffic, or when someone was rude to me, that was quite a challenge. Little by little, I learned to integrate this new perspective into my everyday life. I started practicing gratitude more, trying to see the divine in every person and situation, even when it was difficult. I started meditating regularly to keep this connection alive. One of the most profound things that changed was my relationship with death. That paralyzing fear I had, it just disappeared. Not that I wanted to die, far from it. But now I understood that death is not the end. It's just a transition. It gave me a peace I had never experienced before. My way of seeing relationships has also completely changed. I started to value genuine connections much more, to seek more depth in my interactions. Some friendships grew stronger, others dissolved naturally. And I was okay with that. Another thing that changed was my relationship with time. Before, I was always running, always looking forward to the next moment, the next achievement. Now I can appreciate the present more. Every moment became precious, an opportunity to experience, to grow, to love. And you know what's most incredible? The more I practiced living in this new consciousness, the more I attracted people and situations that resonated with it. It was as if the universe was conspiring to help me on this new journey. Of course, I still have my difficult days. I still find myself falling into old patterns sometimes. But now I have an anchor, you know? Whenever I feel lost, I close my eyes and connect with that experience of unconditional love. And that centers me again. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that life is much more mysterious and wonderful than we imagine. That there is so much more going on behind the scenes than meets the eye. And that at the end of the day, everything, absolutely everything, is an expression of this universal love. Today, years after that experience, I am still discovering new layers of meaning in what I experienced. Each day is an opportunity to dive deeper into this new reality, to be a little more the being of light that I discovered I am. And you know what? I am deeply grateful. Grateful for having had this experience. Grateful for each challenge that brought me here. grateful for each person who crossed my path, because now I know that everything, every joy, every pain, is part of this incredible journey that is being alive. And that's what I want to leave you with. No matter what you are going through, know that there is a greater purpose, that you are deeply loved, and that every moment is an opportunity to reconnect with this greater truth that exists within you. Because at the end of the day, we are all much more than we imagine ourselves to be. We are all beings of light, just temporarily wearing human clothes, living this incredible adventure called life.